wishful thinking, or a mystical metaphor with no real substance. They assume it means repeating affirmations, sending out desperate wishes, or trying to force life to comply with a script you've written in your imagination. But in truth, the science behind this idea is far more profound and far more practical than most realize. In quantum physics, there is a principle called non-locality. It describes the way particles that have once interacted remain connected, even when separated by vast distances. When something changes in one particle, the other responds instantaneously, without any physical signal traveling between them. This phenomenon is not theoretical. It has been observed, tested, and measured in laboratory settings again and again. Now imagine that your consciousness is a field of energy, capable of influencing the probabilities of reality in ways you can't always see. Imagine that your focused thought, when combined with authentic emotion and a state of relaxed presence, becomes a coherent wave, one that ripples into the quantum field and begins to organize the probabilities around you. This is not about superstition or magical thinking. It's about the physics of resonance, the measurable frequencies your heart and brain emit, and the reality that consciousness plays an active role in shaping what you perceive. In this video, you're going to discover how this process works and why most attempts to talk to the universe fail, not because the field isn't listening, but because the signal being sent is scrambled by incoherence, doubt, and hidden resistance. We'll explore what it means to create a clear, stable broadcast from your own nervous system, and how your intention becomes more powerful when you stop trying to force outcomes. By the end of this experience, you'll understand how to move from simply wishing for change to transmitting a frequency so consistent that life has no choice but to reflect it back to you. But first, I want to invite you to consider something. If your thoughts are energy, and your emotions are energy, and your body is a field of oscillating frequencies, then everything you experience is, at some level, a conversation between your personal signal and the greater field. The universe is not responding to your words alone. It is responding to the totality of what you are being, the coherent, sustained pattern of feeling, focus, and meaning you hold moment to moment. This is why many people feel frustrated when they recite affirmations or visualize outcomes without any real shift. Because under the surface of those practices is often a deeper signal: fear that it won't work, doubt about worthiness, urgency to get results, and the field picks up every layer of that signal, not just the words you say out loud. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you need to maintain an artificial state of bliss. What it means is that you have the capacity to refine your broadcast, to become more aware of what you're actually transmitting, and to practice bringing your heart, mind, and body into a state of coherence that the field recognizes. Imagine your energy as a tuning fork. When you strike it, it vibrates at a particular frequency. Any nearby object capable of resonance will begin to vibrate along with it. This is why environments, people, and circumstances often start to shift when you stabilize your own field, not because you are forcing them to change, but because you have become a coherent source of resonance. In the next part of this journey, we'll look at the science behind this phenomenon. You'll see how researchers have measured the electromagnetic fields created by your heart and brain, and how these fields interact with the environment in subtle but powerful ways. You'll also discover why clarity and authenticity are more important than intensity, and how the universe responds most strongly when your signal is relaxed, focused, and free of hidden conflict. Stay with me. Because once you understand the real mechanics behind talking to the universe, you'll never again feel the need to force or chase what you desire. You'll begin to see that your life is a continuous dialogue, and the clarity of your signal determines the quality of the response. When you begin to look closely at the science behind how your thoughts and emotions interact with reality, you discover something that challenges nearly everything we were taught about cause and effect. You start to see that your consciousness is not just a byproduct of your brain. It's an active force that radiates measurable energy into the field around you. One of the most fascinating areas of research comes from the study of the heart's electromagnetic field. The HeartMath Institute and other laboratories have shown that the heart generates the largest rhythmic electromagnetic field produced in the body. This field can be detected up to several feet away with sensitive instruments, And it doesn't just carry information about your heart rate, it encodes patterns of emotion and physiological coherence. When you experience frustration or fear, the signals between your heart and brain become erratic. Your heart rhythm loses its smooth pattern and becomes jagged, irregular. This state is called incoherence. Incoherence creates what researchers describe as biological noise. Your nervous system shifts into survival mode. Your brain becomes less able to access creativity and big-picture thinking. And most importantly for our topic today, your electromagnetic broadcast becomes fragmented. In contrast, when you feel appreciation, calm, or genuine compassion, your heart rhythm shifts into a smooth, sine wave-like pattern. This state is called coherence, and it produces a measurable electromagnetic signature that is stable, organized, and strong. But why does this matter? Because your electromagnetic field is not limited to your body. It extends into the space around you, interacting with the larger field in which all matter exists. Think of it like dropping a stone into a still pond. The ripples move outward, affecting everything they touch. In the same way, your coherent heart field broadcasts a signal, one that influences both your own physiology and the environment beyond your skin. Scientists have also discovered that the brain emits its own electromagnetic waves. When you focus your attention, especially with intention and emotion, your brain waves synchronize in a process called phase locking. This synchronization strengthens the clarity of your signal, allowing your heart and brain to communicate more efficiently. This is where the quantum aspect becomes important. At the most fundamental level of reality, everything is energy vibrating at different frequencies. Particles are not solid objects, but probabilities, waves of potential that collapse into form when observed. This phenomenon, known as the observer effect, is one of the most well-documented principles in quantum physics. What many people don't realize is that observation is not limited to simply looking at something with your eyes. In the language of physics, observation means interacting with the field in a way that changes its behavior. Your focused attention, especially when infused with emotion and intention, acts as a kind of observation, collapsing potential outcomes into tangible experiences. This is why your state of being matters more than any specific words you speak or rituals you perform. If your body is in a state of incoherence, your thoughts are fragmented, and your emotions are driven by urgency or fear, your signal becomes chaotic. The field responds, but what it reflects is the totality of that disordered vibration. Conversely, when you cultivate coherence, when your heart, mind, and body are aligned, you emit a signal that is strong, stable, and easier for the field to mirror back to you. This doesn't guarantee that every outcome will look exactly as you imagined, but it does mean you are far more likely to experience synchronicities, opportunities, and insights that match your state of internal order. Let's bring this down to a practical metaphor. Imagine you're tuning an old analog radio. If the dial is even a little bit off, you hear static. The signal is there, but you can't receive it clearly. When you fine-tune the dial to the precise frequency, the broadcast comes through without distortion. Your electromagnetic field works the same way. The clearer and more coherent your internal state, the more precisely you tune in to experiences that align with your intention. The field itself is neutral. It doesn't judge or withhold. It simply responds to the quality and consistency of your signal. This is why some people feel that reality only responds to them in moments of surrender or deep presence. It's not that the field is withholding when you're stressed or striving. It's that your own signal is too fragmented to create resonance. And this is also why talking to the universe is both simpler and more profound than repeating affirmations or trying to visualize outcomes with desperate intensity. It's about becoming aware of the energy you are broadcasting moment to moment, and practicing the art of refining that broadcast into something clear and stable. In the next part of this exploration, we'll look at how intention actually becomes frequency. You'll discover how emotion, focus, and meaning combine to create a vibrational signature, and why authentic feeling always outweighs forced thinking. Stay with me, because when you understand this process, you'll realize that you've been communicating with the universe all along, whether you knew it or not. If you've ever wondered why simply thinking about what you want isn't enough to create lasting change, you're not alone. Most people assume that the mind alone can shape reality if you just think hard enough, visualize in detail, or repeat affirmations over and over. But intention, in the context of quantum science, is not just a mental process. It's a complex interaction of attention, emotion, and meaning. A multi-dimensional signal that carries far more weight than thoughts alone. Let's start with a simple premise. Energy follows attention. Wherever you direct your focus, you amplify the energetic patterns associated with that object or idea. Neuroscientists have confirmed this through research into what's called neural firing and wiring. When you think about something repeatedly, the neurons associated with that thought fire together more often, strengthening the connection and making it easier to think the same thought again. But attention alone is not enough to change your frequency. You can focus on abundance all day long, but if your body is anchored in a feeling of scarcity, you are still broadcasting a signal of lack. This is where emotion enters the equation. Emotion is the energetic carrier wave that gives your thoughts power. Think of your thoughts as the information, and your emotions as the frequency that broadcasts that information into the field. When your thoughts and emotions are in alignment, when you are thinking about what you desire and feeling as though it's already real, you create a coherent signal. This is why practices that combine focus and elevated emotion are so powerful. For example, when you hold a clear vision of something you want to experience and simultaneously generate a feeling of gratitude or appreciation as if it has already occurred, your brain and heart move into coherence. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart becomes more ordered, your brain waves synchronize, and you emit a vibrational signature that the field recognizes as clarity rather than confusion. One of the most effective ways to understand this is to think about the difference between hoping and embodying. When you hope, your signal often carries a hidden undertone of doubt or longing. You're still projecting a gap between where you are and where you want to be. The field doesn't hear the words, "I want this." It picks up the feeling underneath, "I don't have this yet." But when you practice embodying, when you feel the emotional reality of your vision as though it's already present, your frequency changes. Your body begins to shift from survival chemistry to regenerative chemistry. You release stress hormones and produce neurochemicals associated with trust and safety. Your electromagnetic field becomes more stable. Consider this metaphor. Imagine you are a musician tuning an instrument. If you strike a note with tension and fear that it will be out of tune, the sound is unstable. But if you relax and play with trust in your skill, the note rings clear and true. The same principle applies to your intentions. Here's a practical example. Let's say you have an intention to create more financial abundance. If you focus on this desire while feeling urgency, anxiety, or a need to prove yourself, your field carries those frequencies. No matter how many times you repeat, "I am abundant," what the field actually receives is, "I am afraid I am not enough." On the other hand, if you spend time cultivating a feeling of gratitude for the resources you already have, even if they're modest, you begin to encode your signal with appreciation. When you combine that with a clear focus on what you are choosing to create, your intention becomes coherent. This process, attention plus elevated emotion plus meaning, is what turns a thought into a frequency. The meaning component is often overlooked. Meaning is the story you attach to your intention. It determines whether your desire feels like a desperate attempt to fix yourself or an inspired expression of your growth. For example, if your desire for abundance is rooted in a belief that you are incomplete without it, you are broadcasting lack. If your desire comes from a sense of purpose, generosity, or expansion, you are broadcasting a different frequency entirely, even if the external goal looks the same. This is why authenticity is so crucial. You cannot bypass your true feelings by layering positive thoughts on top of unresolved fear. The field reads the totality of your signal, including what you are not willing to acknowledge. But here's the empowering part. Once you start paying attention to the emotional tone of your intentions, you gain the ability to refine them. You can practice generating a state of gratitude or trust first, then focus your attention on what you are choosing to create. Over time, this becomes easier because your nervous system begins to recognize these elevated states as familiar rather than foreign. The more you practice this process, the more naturally you find yourself inhabiting a state where your thoughts and emotions are congruent. And in that state, your intentions stop feeling like effort and start feeling like a natural extension of who you are. In the next part of this journey, we're going to explore what happens when you maintain this coherence consistently, how the field begins to mirror your signal in ways that often look like synchronicity, effortless opportunities, or unexpected solutions. Stay with me, because when you understand how the field responds to the frequency you embody, you'll never again wonder if the universe is listening. You'll know that it has been responding all along, waiting for you to speak in the only language it truly understands, the vibration of your own coherence. When you begin to practice aligning your thoughts, emotions, and intentions into a coherent frequency, something almost imperceptible at first begins to change. It's not always a sudden miracle or a dramatic sign. Often, it starts as a subtle shift in how reality responds to you, a sense that circumstances are no longer working against you, but flowing with you. This is the essence of resonance. In the same way that a tuning fork causes another to vibrate when it's struck, your coherent energy field begins to organize the probabilities within the quantum field into patterns that mirror your state of being. One of the most powerful aspects of this process is that it doesn't require you to micromanage every detail of your life. You don't need to control every thought or predict every outcome. Instead, you learn to trust that the quality of your signal shapes the probabilities that will eventually crystallize into your lived experience. Let's break this down practically. Imagine you're in a situation that feels uncertain, a career transition, a health challenge, or a relationship crossroads. If your nervous system is locked in survival mode, your perception becomes narrow. Your brain scans for threats. Your decisions are driven by fear. Even when opportunities arise, you often can't see them because your awareness is contracted around what could go wrong. But when you practice coherence, you create physiological conditions that expand your perception. Your brain waves synchronize. Your heart rhythm stabilizes. You enter a state neurologists describe as whole brain functioning, where creativity, intuition, and clear thinking become accessible. This is why so many people report that when they finally relax and stop forcing, solutions begin to appear. Not because the external world magically changed overnight, but because their internal filters shifted. They became available to receive the signals the field had been sending all along. One of the most common signs that your frequency is becoming coherent is the emergence of synchronicity. You might think about a person, and they call you within hours. You feel drawn to explore something new, only to discover it contains exactly the information you needed. Resources, ideas, and connections start appearing with a sense of ease. These experiences are not random. They are the natural outcome of broadcasting a clear signal into the quantum field. You've probably heard the saying, like attracts like. In physics, this is better described as entrainment, when systems oscillating at different frequencies begin to synchronize over time. When your field is inconsistent, filled with mixed signals of desire and doubt, it's like trying to tune into a radio station while static blares in the background. You may catch pieces of the music, but the interference keeps you from experiencing it fully. But as your coherence stabilizes, the interference quiets, the signal becomes clear, and life begins to organize itself around the frequency you are consistently embodying. This doesn't mean every challenge disappears. It means your relationship to challenge transforms. You stop interpreting obstacles as punishments or evidence that you're doing something wrong. Instead, you see them as invitations to return to alignment, to deepen your trust, and to refine your signal even further. You might notice that old habits, overthinking, comparing, controlling, still arise. This is normal. The key is to recognize when you're slipping back into force and gently return to presence. Over time, this becomes your new baseline. One of the simplest ways to reinforce this process is to celebrate small indicators that your frequency is shifting. Did you feel more calm today in a situation that once triggered you? Did you notice a moment of gratitude where there used to be resentment? These are not trivial details. They are the building blocks of transformation. Before we continue, I want to invite you to mark this moment as a conscious choice point, because the act of naming your shift strengthens it. It tells your subconscious mind and the quantum field that you are ready to embody a new level of clarity. If you feel a resonance with what you've been hearing, if you can sense even a subtle recognition that you are already broadcasting a different signal, I invite you to anchor that awareness right now. In the comments, simply write, "I am broadcasting." These 3 words are more than an affirmation. They are a declaration that you are no longer waiting for reality to change before you feel different. You are choosing to become the frequency that attracts what you desire. When you do this consistently, when you practice returning to coherence even in small moments, you begin to experience a new relationship with the universe, one that feels less like pushing and more like collaborating, less like forcing and more like receiving. In the next part of this exploration, we're going to look at some of the most common misconceptions about talking to the universe. You'll learn why repeating affirmations without embodiment often leads to disappointment, and how to make your communication with the field more authentic and effective. Stay with me, because understanding these myths will help you avoid the frustration so many people feel, and allow you to deepen your practice of living in resonance. When you first learn about the idea that your energy shapes reality, it can feel both exciting and overwhelming. Exciting because it confirms something you've always sensed, that there is more to life than what you can see. Overwhelming because suddenly you feel responsible for every thought, every feeling, every fluctuation in your state. This is where many people unintentionally create more tension. Instead of allowing the process to unfold naturally, they try to control every mental movement, every stray emotion. They imagine the universe as a strict examiner, measuring their worthiness by the purity of their thoughts. But this belief is one of the most persistent myths about communicating with the field. The idea that you must be perfect to receive what you desire. So let's look together at some of the most common misconceptions, so you can let go of what doesn't serve you and make space for a more authentic, sustainable practice. Myth 1. You have to feel positive all the time. One of the fastest ways to create inner conflict is to force yourself to feel something you don't. If you try to plaster gratitude over fear, or pretend you're at peace when you're anxious, you create a split in your field. Part of you is pushing for an outcome and another part is quietly resisting. Coherence doesn't mean constant positivity. It means honesty. You can feel uncertainty and still choose to return to a more stable state without denying what's real for you. In fact, acknowledging your true feelings is often the first step toward releasing them. Myth 2. Repeating affirmations is enough to change your frequency. Affirmations can be supportive, but they are only effective when they align with the emotion and belief in your body. Simply reciting words without feeling is like sending a radio signal with no power behind it. If you tell yourself, "I am abundant," but your body contracts in disbelief, the field receives the contraction more strongly than the words. That doesn't mean you should never use affirmations. It means you must slow down enough to connect them to an authentic feeling, even if it's just a small sense of openness or possibility. Myth 3. You need to visualize every detail perfectly. Visualization can be a helpful tool for clarifying what you want to experience, but obsessing over the exact shape and timing of your desires often pulls you out of coherence. Remember, the field doesn't require micromanagement. What it responds to is the emotional signature you emit. You don't have to know every step between where you are and where you want to go. You only need to consistently embody the frequency of the outcome you're inviting. Myth 4. If something unwanted happens, you failed. This is one of the most damaging misunderstandings. Life is dynamic. Challenges and unexpected events will still arise, even when you are in coherence. These moments are not punishments, they are opportunities to deepen your alignment and strengthen your trust. When you interpret every difficulty as evidence that you're doing it wrong, you create more resistance. But when you see obstacles as invitations to return to presence, you transform them into catalysts for growth. Myth 5. You have to control your thoughts all day long. Your mind produces thousands of thoughts every day. Trying to monitor or suppress all of them is exhausting and unnecessary. What matters is not the occasional negative thought. It's the dominant state you return to repeatedly. If you spend most of your time in a baseline of gratitude, openness, and trust, the field will respond to that primary frequency. The stray doubts or moments of frustration don't override the larger pattern. Myth 6. You can force outcomes by trying harder. This is perhaps the most important misconception to release. The more you strain and push, the more you signal to the universe that you don't trust the process. Effort is not the same as clarity. You can take inspired action, but it flows from coherence, not desperation. When you feel yourself tightening into urgency, why isn't this working yet? That's the moment to pause, breathe, and return to the feeling of already being enough. Letting go of these myths isn't about lowering your standards. It's about making space for a different kind of participation, one rooted in presence rather than performance. You don't have to prove your worth to the universe. You don't have to constantly audition for the life you desire. You are already an extension of the field itself. Your signal is always heard, even when you doubt it. The real question is not whether the universe is listening. It's whether you are willing to slow down enough to hear the ways it is already responding. In the next part of this experience, I'll guide you through a short exercise you can use anytime you feel disconnected or uncertain. You'll practice aligning your heart, mind, and body into a coherent frequency so you can experience what it feels like to talk to the universe in a way that is grounded, sincere, and clear. Stay with me, because integration is where all of this becomes real, not as an idea, but as an embodied state you can return to again and again. Now that you've released the myths that create tension and learned how your intention becomes frequency, it's time to practice. Because no amount of theory can replace the experience of feeling your own signal stabilizing, of sensing your body, your mind, and your heart coming into coherence. This exercise doesn't require any special preparation. You don't need to be in a perfect mood or free from all doubt. The only thing you need is a few moments of uninterrupted space and the willingness to be present. Find a comfortable position, either seated or lying down. Let your hands rest gently on your lap or over your heart. If you'd like, close your eyes, or simply soften your gaze toward the floor. Take a slow, steady breath in through your nose. Let your belly expand as you inhale. Hold for a brief moment, then release the breath gently through your mouth. Repeat this 2 more times, allowing each exhale to be a little longer than the inhale. As you continue breathing slowly, bring your attention to the space in the center of your chest. Imagine that this space holds a quiet, luminous field, like a soft light pulsing gently with each heartbeat. With your next inhale, imagine you're drawing in a calm, supportive energy. As you exhale, feel it spreading through your body, softening any places that feel tight or tense. Now begin to introduce a feeling of appreciation. It doesn't have to be grand or overwhelming. Perhaps you feel grateful for this moment of stillness, or for the simple fact that you are alive and aware, capable of choosing a new way of being. Let this feeling expand with each breath. If your mind starts to wander, notice it kindly, and guide your attention back to the gentle glow in your chest. When you feel anchored in this calm awareness, silently ask yourself, what would it feel like to trust that the universe is listening? You don't need an answer in words. Let your body respond. Maybe there is a subtle warmth, a sense of openness, or just a quiet ease in your breath. This is coherence. This is the state where your intention becomes a signal, and the field begins to reflect it back. Stay here for a few more breaths, simply noticing. There is nothing to fix, nothing to prove, only a conversation unfolding between your inner world and the energy that connects everything. When you're ready, take a final slow inhale, feeling this sense of clarity and calm settling into your body. As you exhale, gently open your eyes. If you felt even a subtle shift, if something in you softened or grew more spacious, know that this is the beginning. You don't need to force yourself to stay here all the time. You only need to remember that this state is always available, waiting for you to return. Over time, as you practice, you'll find that the gap between moments of coherence grows smaller, that the urgency to control fades, that you start to trust the field in a way that feels less like an idea and more like an unshakable knowing. And if you felt resonance in this experience, If something in you recognizes the truth that your signal matters, I'd love to invite you to stay connected. Subscribing to this channel isn't about gathering more information or collecting techniques you'll never use. It's about joining a community of people who are committed to living from this place of coherence, a space where science and spirituality meet, and where your growth is supported breath by breath. If that feels aligned for you, you can subscribe now, and know that every time you return here, whether to learn something new or simply to remind yourself of what you already know, you are strengthening this frequency within yourself. Thank you for sharing this moment, for the quiet courage it takes to release force and trust your own resonance. Stay present, keep observing with compassion, and always remember, the field is always listening.